Why is a neighborhood in Detroit different from one in Chicago?
For this video, I'm going to have to reference an article by Pete Saunders. He's a very good blogger with urbanist content. However, that article is from 2012. That's a little outdated, but most of the info here is correct. Now, he's got 9 reasons why Detroit failed from the perspective of a planner. 8 and 9 are especially enlightening. We're going to look at 7 first. The one part of Detroit city history that probably led to the most problems long-term would be them adopting an at-large voting system, wherein instead of having districts in different parts of the city electing different council members, every council member is elected from the whole city at large. Now, when council members represent only small parts of the city, when you want to put pressure on them to vote a certain way, you only have to campaign in a small area. At the time of the 1967 riot, a congressman in the U.S. Representatives House represented 410,000 people about. A city council member in Detroit represented almost 4 times as many people. Because you'd have to lobby for almost 4 times as much to affect a city council race in Detroit, 4 times as much as it would take to lobby to affect a congressional race in Washington, D.C., the people felt disconnected from the city council. The civil rights movement tried changing this right before the 67 riot. This article from the New York Times, about a month after the riot happened, highlights how even though Detroit manages to elect black representatives to the state and to the federal level, they have elected almost very few black members to the city council at large over the city's history. You also have a much younger John Conyers here, who's against the at-large system, wants to go back to the ward system. He points out how to elect even one Negro at large, we need support from the white liberals, the UAW, the real power here. The candidate needs union votes, also union money, because it costs more to run for the council at large here than it does for the U.S. Congress. That means he has to be anointed by our white friends. That won't do anymore, Mr. Conyers says. The article goes on to point out how, because there's such a disconnect between the city government and the community itself, African-American individuals elected to a position in government, no matter what position, are seen as Uncle Toms that sold out to the white power structure, and they don't represent the community. And John Conyers, famously, he was assaulted during the riot when he was trying to calm down the mobs, calm down the violence. They saw him as an Uncle Tom that didn't represent them. Now, if we turn back on over to Mr. Saunders here, reason number 1 for why Detroit failed is, he believes, poor neighborhood identification. Because he compares it to Chicago. In Chicago, you ask someone where they're from, and they all say Chatham Park, Jefferson Park, Lincoln Park, something, something, something. However, Detroit, it's just East Side, West Side, pretty generic. You don't have any specific neighborhoods, communities to give you community identity. This leads to Detroit failing because then people can't come together to help each other out. There is no sense of community. And really, the reason behind that is you don't have a sense of community because the political leaders, they don't feel like they have to represent communities. So you don't have community structure without leaders representing community. This neighborhood agreement map shows where there's agreement and disagreement over the boundaries of neighborhoods. I encourage you to look at it, and there's actually a lot of interesting articles online about how there's disagreement in Detroit over where one neighborhood begins and another one ends. A lot of people have been documenting how the borders of many neighborhoods change over time. So, Middletown was created in the early 2000s, and the neighborhood that used to be called Cass Corridor, not that many people call it Cass anymore. As you see on this map from Detroit Geography, lots of people disagree over whether it's Cass Corridor or Midtown, and that's from many years ago. Many people have tried mapping the changing borders of neighborhoods over the years in Detroit. Alex Hill of Detroit Geography puts together many maps of other people and even makes some of the maps himself onto his website. It's a very good mapping blog. I encourage you to check it out. Published this book, Detroit in 50 Maps, which has some of the best maps from the website, along with a lot of maps that are original to the book. And in this book about how many neighborhoods have had their boundaries change over time. And like, for example, this is the oldest neighborhoods here. Now, Piety Hill, many of these are gone. The borders of Corktown have changed their shapes extensively over the years, but Piety Hill, the neighborhood in Detroit today called Piety Hill, is much further to the north over there. It's an upper-class suburb, and really, whereas Chicago has neighborhoods defined by land boundaries, Detroit has neighborhoods defined by the boundaries of time. The relationship that one has with the economy based on the class structure and the power structure, it influences how they perceive their relationship with the community and community image. Detroit has a long history of developments that disrupt the communities around them. They build something that's disruptive to the community that's next to it, or say a factory closes and that factory employed a lot of people from one community. Suddenly people are moving out of that community. The article from Saunders might lead one to believe there is no sense of neighborhood identity in Detroit. To the contrary, there is, but the way Detroiters look at it is it's just a matter of time before that neighborhood is so affected by economic forces that the identity of that neighborhood will change. It may not even exist anymore because of the chaotic economic forces. And a lot of the times, many neighborhoods just outright get bulldozed and cleared away for development through eminent domain and urban renewal. There's a long history of it in Detroit. The identity to the core city neighborhood most strongly emphasizes that it is bound by time. I encourage you to read this article from Detroit Is It on the background of that neighborhood. There's this real enlightening quote at the end of the article here from people who moved there. They say, "What exists in Core City is unique to both the time and place of this area. It is something unique, special, made up of people with a shared vision and passion, trying to bring out the important value of community." Now, Core City didn't exist 10 years ago. I do not think it will exist in 10 years from now when it's more developed. You have this 2.5 blocks of a historic community. It used to be part of a much larger old neighborhood, and whatever the name of that community was, well, it's gone. And this little community has no name. It's at the edge of the Research Park West Urban Renewal Project and freeways and many other developments. I actually posted a video on TikTok last week about this neighborhood, asking if anyone had a name for it. It seems to be a nameless neighborhood, and one of you so eloquently named it Ass Corridor. Why, we'll keep looking for names, okay? But thank you for your contribution. Okay, props. You're doing good with that fix up there. I like it. Whoever owns that house, you're doing good.